I feel like the president should be the one who actually tries to run the country.
I think they came out of the gate trying to prove a point, and I'm not even sure what the point is, other than they're in charge.
I'm really happy that we don't have a continuing Biden-Harris administration, so there's certainly a lesser of evil.
I worry for our country, and I do worry for the world also.
I think that they are self-serving. I think that they are not exactly leaders. I think that they are, oh boy.
I think it's doing an excellent job trying to track where all the money goes.
My opinion of this current administration is it's a fascist autocracy being put in place, and I actually think it's a repeat. They're using the same tactics that Hitler did during Nazi Germany.
I'll preface it by saying there are many critiques of Donald Trump that I think are not in good faith, and basically his opponents will lie and exaggerate some of his deficiencies.
President Trump and his team has discovered a lot of money that we need to find to give back to the American people. And we cannot keep affording to give it to the world with all the Americans struggling the way they are now today. So we need to have accountability and accounting to find out where the money's going.
It's kind of the knee-jerk reaction that you expect from government these days. Any issue that pops up, they think they can solve it quickly by drastic intervention and drastic actions, when a lot of these problems have been brewing for decades.
The president ought to be the one who actually runs the departments that, or oversees the departments that actually run the country. And the Congress is supposed to be the body that makes the laws, and the judiciary is supposed to be the body that interprets those laws and makes sure that we are a law-abiding country. And I feel like this administration is trying to do all three of those. So I'm frankly kind of worried. I think it's too much for any one administration to try to do, and at the same time, it's not practical. It's not healthy for a democracy.
With the separation of the left and right, that the chasm in the middle is growing, and the default obstructionism that we're seeing, they feel they have to go in with a giant hammer and just start breaking things and reshaping them.
It doesn't seem like they're leading this country, or at least the current administration is leading this country in a way that seems logical. It seems like logical to me, I'll say. There is an underlying logic to it that I've sort of gathered, and very much upholding different systems and systems of oppression and things like that I pay attention to. But just in general, if I were to lead a country, or if I picked someone to lead a country, I would not do what they're doing.
Donald Trump, I like some of his policies, and some of them I'm a little less supportive of. I'm a little worried about the tariffs. I'm not really happy about the big, bold, beautiful spending package. I'm not at all happy about some of what's happening in reconciliation bills and otherwise of allocating money to large agriculture at the expense of organic, regenerative, or local agriculture. But on balance, I'm highly relieved that we don't have another Democratic administration, given the last one. So I'm very, very enthusiastically happy that Donald Trump won. I just hope that he takes advantage of the opportunity to win more people over and not mess it up.
not really sure. I know there's a lot of people who have been in a really bad place and have been eating the lies that the government tells us about how the country works and what the problems in America are. So I think that the people who support the administration being on the right are essentially delusional in the sense that there's literally there's an illusion of reality and what the financial and social circumstances of the country are.
Well, I think their opinion is that this administration is their savior, and especially the working poor, the working poor that are struggling. They believe he's a hero coming in to save. It really is, and when you look at from a Christian nationalist standpoint, they view him as almost the second coming of Jesus. So it's really this whole thing of putting this person on an incredible pedestal, which totally goes against rational thought, because I also call myself a Christian, and every human is flawed. So it really is setting up a false idol.
I would think they would say the sky is falling and the world's ending because he's going to take everything away from them. But that's not the truth. It's not the truth at all. What they're doing is trying to scare tactic people without even doing any research or checking out what he really is trying to do.
I would imagine that they probably base a lot of their views off of the extremes, just like the right does of the left. Everyone on the right thinks everyone on the left is a Marxist hippie, and everyone on the left seems to think that everyone to the right is, wearing MAGA hats and running around with torches and secretly has a swastika under their bed or something.
I think that there are varying opinions, and I believe that that depends on where people get their source of information. The fire hose of information that we're fed is very partisan, and you can go into a silo and only hear the things that you want to hear.
This is a new era. I grew up under a guy named Walter Cronkite. Maybe some have criticized him too. Perfect journalism and perfect objectivity is impossible. But it's really hard to, for instance, even read the headlines about how conservatives feel about Donald Trump. In other words, I could speak to you anecdotally, but to say how Republicans feel about Donald Trump, we just saw, I forget the guy's name, is going to run in Florida, who walked away from the Republican Party. That's anecdotal. Some headlines say polls show a lot of conservatives are moving away from Donald Trump. Other headlines show that his poll ratings are going up. I don't actually know the answer to the question. I know, as I mentioned earlier, that I have not met a Trump-loving fan who didn't say they wished he wouldn't tweet so much. He seems to have tempered it a little bit this time around. So I don't really have my finger on that pulse. I don't know the answer.
The right is not a monolith. There's deep fractures and divisions. There's certainly a cult of Donald Trump, people who basically are blind to any of his flaws or will just rationalize any of his flaws. So there's that faction that would just dismiss it or say, whoa, what about Joe Biden? And pretty much, I think, even if they're not in the cult of Donald Trump, there's a huge section that would just say, well, I was given the choice of lesser of two evils, and this one is more aligned with my brand of culture, right? They were wedged into seeing Trump as more of an ally because of these hot button issues like trans and sports, abortion, like whatever things that piss off that cultural segment of the country, like those people would say, I just couldn't bring myself to vote for Joe Biden.
Everyone seems to have a cartoonish view of the other side. So, you know, if one admitted to being a right-winger in a room of left-wing people, I guarantee you they'd be called a Nazi before they left the room.